as we head into the meat and potatoes here of or really the home stretch of the draft process, we're seeing, a guy like JJ McCarthy, really, I won't even call it like a meteoric rise. It just seemed like before he even got to the NFL Combine, you're seeing him rise up draft boards, move into the top 15, move into the top 10. Now there's, this top 5 buzz potentially for him. And it seems like a lot of evaluators and people in your sphere, so to speak, some have judged him on his lack of production relative to the guys like Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, as to why he might not be NFL ready, while others will say the offense that he comes from. Obviously, he played under a now NFL coach in Jim Harbaugh, ran a lot of pro-style concepts. That might make him the most NFL ready of any of these guys. So I guess we'll start with, where do you stand on that, and just your view of him as a prospect in general as we head into, the home stretch here?
Yeah, he's one of the more interesting prospects because right from the outset, the narrative was being put out there by kind of NFL insiders and people that talk to scouts, coaches, guys in the league. And all the way along, those guys were saying JJ McCarthy is somebody that the NFL likes more than the draft community, than the media, than the buzz that's out there generally. And that, I think, is why you're seeing what looks like a real rise in his draft stock. It's actually just that the closer we get, the more that is stacking evidence on top of evidence. And everybody from outside of NFL buildings is starting to catch up to the idea that the NFL does seem to see this guy significantly more attractively or as a much better prospect than the kind of media or people that were just watching film outside did. So I think that does seem to be real and Jim Harbaugh came out weeks ago and was like, he should be QB1 off the board. And that was treated as ridiculous. But the closer we get, the idea that he goes number 2 overall is not seeming particularly far-fetched right now. I think it would still be less likely for that to happen than somebody else, but it's becoming a real possibility now. So Jim Harbaugh's comments, the closer we get to the draft, are looking less and less crazy than they were going to give him credit for when he first uttered them. So, yeah, then you get the complicating factor of, look, he does have the sample size is a lot smaller, right? He wasn't asked to do the same things that some of these other quarterbacks were. Now, that doesn't mean he can't do them. It just means that he wasn't asked to do them. And Michigan won a national title, right? They're sending like 1 million people to the draft. Clearly, they didn't need to lean on JJ McCarthy the way some of these other teams needed to lean on their quarterback. It's a different assignment. It was a different role and responsibility for him. And then the other element you pointed out, that he was in a more pro-style offense than a lot of these other quarterbacks. And I think that really stands in his favor. I think NFL personnel people and NFL coaches love to see a guy running what they run, right? Because they don't need to do any projection. They don't need to figure out how what he's doing in college translates to the schemes and the play concepts that they're running. They can actually see him running the play concepts that they're running. Now, maybe he's doing it less than, other guys in terms of just volume of reps, but they're seeing him actually do the like for like thing that they're going to ask him to do at the next level. And I think that's a big thing, certainly for coaches. I think they love seeing that. So I think you put it all together and you have a quarterback that's always had all the physical tools. It's always had the kind of prototypical traits. They are seeing him execute the things that they're going to ask him to do, the concepts that they're going to need him to do at the next level. And most NFL personnel, I think, are fine with the idea. They're not hung up on the volume thing. Like, they don't care that he was throwing the ball less than some other guys. A lot of that, I think, generally is overblown as a criticism anyway. Like, it's not, it's not, nobody ever, like, anyone that thinks they threw the ball less because they didn't trust JJ McCarthy, I think is just missing the point. So that, I don't think, has ever been a fair or valid criticism. And the fact that it's a lower sample size, I think the NFL cares less about that than maybe other people do.
It's great to go high in the draft. Like, he could go number 2, as you mentioned. People are starting to talk about that a little bit more. But, I mean, fit is also important. I think Minnesota was kind of a hot name and still is, with potentially JJ if they move up, or, maybe earlier in the process, it looked like maybe they could get him at their original pick. What is a good fit for him? And then, like, what do you see in terms of Would it be good if he was eased in a little bit more, maybe like a red shirt type of year like Patrick Mahomes did? Or, could he take over right away? What would be best for his career in terms of where he goes and how they kind of handle him?
Yeah, I mean, I think environment is huge for young quarterbacks. So it's sort of a three-pronged situation, in my opinion. It's number one, what is the scheme that they're running? Is that going to be beneficial? Are you going to land somewhere with a Shanahan offense like CJ Stroud did, where you have the kind of meta system in today's NFL? That's huge. Number two is, what's the pass protection going to look like? What's your offensive line going to look like in front of you? That's helped by the scheme, so it's not completely independent. And then number three is, who are you throwing to? What is the receiving talent like around you? So those three things put together, I think, determine what a quarterback situation is at the next level. You look at Carolina last year, none of the three were working. They had a dysfunctional coaching staff that weren't on the same page. He had virtually no receiving talent. And what looked like an okay offensive line on paper was one of the worst in the NFL when it actually got onto the field. So Bryce Young had nothing to work with. CJ Stroud ended up having maybe all three of them by the time it all worked out. So a team like Minnesota on paper, I think, ticks all three of those boxes. They've got a good coaching setup, a good coaching system, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. They've got receivers to work with. The offensive line is maybe the weakest of the three areas, but it's still got a pair of really good tackles. And then just the interior is a bit of a question mark. So I think the Vikings would absolutely be a good landing spot for him. They've also got the ability to ease him in and to play a guy like Sam Darnold for, a month, 2 months if they need to. I don't know if he's going to need that. And as for that question, generally, I don't think there's necessarily a hard and fast rule. And even for a guy like McCarthy, I think generally it's unlikely to ever do a quarterback harm sitting and learning from the bench. But I think the reverse is not true. You can probably definitely do a quarterback harm by putting him out there too early. So,
right.
Any team looking at McCarthy, I think if they want to ease him in, it's not going to be a bad thing. If they want to rush him in and he isn't ready for that, then that could do damage. So I think generally, if he can land somewhere that has the runway to give him half a season, to get himself up to speed, to get himself ready and used to the NFL level, practice speed, all those kinds of things, and then throw him out there, I think that's better than the reverse where you need to play him day one.